They say kindness costs nothing, but sometimes it buys everything, and sometimes the people the world steps over are the same ones holding the key to someone else's downfall. This is a story of a boy with nothing to his name and a man who thought he had everything, until one lost wallet turned his whole world upside down. Isaiah Mitchell was 17, homeless and invisible. He moved through the streets of downtown like a shadow, his hoodie pulled up, his head down, not because he was hiding, but because that's what survival looked like when nobody cared if you lived or died. He wasn't looking for trouble, just warmth, food, a safe place to lay his head. But fate had a different plan that day when he saw a man in a tailored suit step out of a black Escalade, barking orders into a phone, yelling at someone like they were less than human. Isaiah noticed a wallet drop from the man's coat pocket, thick, sleek, leather, the kind that screamed power and privilege. The man didn't even notice, too busy cursing out someone over a business deal. Isaiah picked it up, hands trembling, and looked inside. Credit cards, hundreds in cash, business cards. One name stood out in gold letters: Douglas Kane, CEO, KaneCorp Holdings. Isaiah could have walked away, bought food, a bus ticket, maybe even a night at a motel, but something in him, the part his mama raised, wouldn't let him. He jogged across the street, dodging cars, calling out, "Hey, sir, you dropped this." But Douglas Kane turned, looked Isaiah up and down, and sneered. "What? You trying to scam me, huh? Think I'm stupid?" Isaiah froze, shocked. "No, I was just trying to get back." But Kane snatched the wallet, inspected it, and snapped. "You go through this? You steal anything? People like you don't just return things out of the goodness of your heart." The words cut deeper than any slap. Isaiah muttered, "Forget I said anything," and walked off. But Kane wasn't done. He yelled loud enough for a nearby officer to hear. "This kid tried to rob me." And just like that, Isaiah was on the ground, cuffs biting into his wrists. The officer, big, red-faced, hands too tight, didn't ask questions, didn't care. Isaiah's protest meant nothing. Not to them, not to the system. He was just another black boy in a hoodie. After hours of questioning and humiliation, they finally let him go when surveillance footage cleared him. No apology, no handshake, just so you're lucky. Isaiah walked out of that precinct feeling smaller than ever, but someone had been watching. 3 weeks later, in a corporate tower downtown, Douglas Kane was sitting smug in his glass office, barking at interns, belittling assistants. The same man, same power, no lessons learned, until a quiet knock came at the door, and in stepped a woman in a dark navy blazer, badge clipped to her belt, flanked by two serious-looking agents. "Mr. Kane, I'm Agent Winters with the Federal Bureau of Investigation," she said coolly. "We need to talk." Kane's face twitched. "Talk about what?" And that's when she pulled out a folder, thick and damning, filled with receipts, bank statements, whistleblower reports, and a USB drive labeled KaneCorp Wire Fraud, Embezzlement, Exploitation. Kane stood up, stammering, "I don't know what you're talking about." But one of the agents stepped forward and said, "You should." Considering the evidence came from a tip submitted by one Isaiah Mitchell, Kane paled, sat down hard. "Who?" And that's when the irony sank in. The boy he tried to humiliate, the one he called a thief, had found something else in that wallet too. A slip of paper, handwritten, with login credentials. Probably forgotten, probably nothing to most people, but Isaiah had taken to a community center where he sometimes used the library computers. And what he found changed everything. Isaiah had anonymously passed it to an old librarian named Mrs. Eloise Rankin, who used to be a civil rights lawyer before retiring, and she knew exactly what to do with it. Now Kane sat in silence, the room closing in, his empire crumbling around him because of one small act he tried to destroy. And outside the building, Isaiah stood across the street, hoodie up, hands in pockets, staring up at the tower with no smile, just quiet, poetic justice written across his face. But just when he turned to walk away, a black car rolled up beside him. Tinted windows, sleek, silent. The back window rolled down, a voice called, "Isaiah Mitchell." He stopped, heart-thudding, turned slowly, and saw the same Agent Winters from earlier, her tone unreadable. "There's something else you need to see. Something we didn't tell you in there." He hesitated, looked around. "What?" And she opened the door, nodded for him to get in. "It's about your father and why Douglas Kane really knew your name before you even opened your mouth." Isaiah's breath caught in his throat. The city noise faded. And in that moment, he realized this was bigger than a wallet, bigger than revenge, and the past he thought was buried was clawing its way back to the surface. Isaiah sat in the back of the black car, heart pounding, eyes locked on the cold face of Agent Winters. The city blurred outside the window as they drove in silence. She finally spoke, voice steady but low. "We didn't bring you here just for Kane." Isaiah swallowed hard. "Then why am I here?" And she passed him a folder with one word on the front. Project Monarch. Isaiah's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were grainy photos, maps, documents. One photo stopped his breath. It was his father, Jermaine Mitchell, standing beside Douglas Kane, shaking hands, both smiling, both younger. "That's impossible," Isaiah whispered. "My dad, he died in prison when I was 6. But Winters leaned forward, her voice dropping. "That's what you were told, Isaiah. But Jermaine Mitchell was never in general population, never even convicted. He disappeared into federal custody 6 days before his trial, and Kane made sure nobody looked for him." Isaiah's stomach turned. His ears rang. "What are you saying?" And Agent Winters said the words like a hammer. "Your father was a whistleblower, Isaiah. He was trying to expose Kane's company for funneling government money through fake contracts. But before he could testify, he vanished, and all records of him were sealed." Isaiah shook his head. No. I remember the trial, the news. They said he was guilty." Winters nodded grimly. "They needed a scapegoat, and Kane gave them one. Your dad was framed, Isaiah, by the same man you tried to return. A wallet, too." The silence that followed was unbearable. Isaiah's world spun, grief, rage, betrayal, all boiling inside him. "Where is he now?" he asked, voice shaking, and Winters paused before saying, "We don't know, but we think he's alive." That night Isaiah couldn't sleep. He sat on the roof of the shelter, staring up at the sky, tried to remember his father's face, his voice, any part of him that hadn't been stolen by the lie. Kane hadn't just stolen money. He stole a family, a name, a future, and now he was behind bars. But it wasn't enough. Isaiah needed the truth, needed to know if his father was still out there, or if Kane had buried him so deep no light could reach. The next morning, Winters brought him into the Federal. Archives, cold, metallic, walls lined with secrets. She handed him a file labeled Mitchell, Jermaine, level 4 classified. "We had to call in a favor," she said. "You're not supposed to see this." Isaiah flipped through it, his breath catching on one line. "Asset moved to Blackgate Containment Facility. Status inactive." "What does that mean?" he asked, but Winters looked away. "Blackgate isn't a prison." "Not in the traditional sense. It's a black site. Off the books, off the grid." Isaiah's hands clenched. "Take me there." But Winters shook her head. "I can't. Not legally, not without clearance, but someone else might." That's when the door opened, and in walked a woman in a green trench coat, olive skin, tight bun, piercing hazel eyes. "You're Isaiah Mitchell," she said, and he recognized the tone. "Military, no nonsense." "And you are?" he asked. She extended a hand. "Marina Vale. I served with your father." Isaiah blinked. "My father was military." Marina nodded. "He was more than that. He was intel deep cover, embedded in KaneCorp before it went corporate. He was the one who gathered the evidence we used to open the first case. But someone leaked his name, and everything fell apart." Isaiah felt the ground tilt beneath him. The lies just kept piling. Vale continued. "I've been trying to find him for 10 years, and now that you've cracked Kane's security, we finally have a trail." Isaiah looked at her, heart thudding. "So we're going to Blackgate?" She gave a thin smile. "We're going off the grid, and once we're in, there's no turning back." 2 nights later, they arrived at the edge of a no-man's land in the Nevada desert. Nothing but sand, wind, and a long abandoned airstrip. But below it, according to the stolen clearance files, was a hidden facility used for holding sensitive assets. Marina passed Isaiah a comm device, a flashlight, and a question. "You sure you want this? What we find down there may not be what you're hoping for." Isaiah didn't hesitate. "I need to know who he was and who I am." They descended through a maintenance shaft, deep into the earth, past rusted steel doors, echoing silence, and biometric scanners that hadn't seen daylight in years. Finally, they reached a holding area, rows of locked rooms, flickering lights, and in one of them a man sat, gray beard, deep eyes, gaunt but alive, and when he looked up, Isaiah froze, breath stolen by a voice he hadn't heard since childhood. "Zay," the man whispered, standing slowly, hands trembling. "Is that you?" Isaiah stepped forward, tears breaking loose. "Dad?" And in that moment, Time folded in on itself. A father and son torn apart by lies, finally face to face. But before they could touch, alarms blared, red lights flashed, and Marina shouted, "We've been made. Move now." Steel doors slammed shut around them. Voices shouted in the distance, and Isaiah turned to his father, who grabbed his arm and said, "They're not here for you. They're here for me. Go!" But Isaiah screamed, "I'm not leaving you again." Vale pulled him, yelling, "We have to go now." But then his father whispered something in his ear, something only Isaiah heard, something that made his blood run cold. "Kane was just the beginning. They're still watching you." The sound of sirens echoed through the steel hallways like a war drum, red lights slicing through the darkness. Isaiah was being dragged by Marina Vale, her grip ironclad, but his eyes were locked on the man he just reunited with, his father Jermaine, who stood behind a security barrier. Staring at his son with a mix of pride and sorrow, Isaiah screamed, "We can't leave him!" But Marina snapped, "If we don't go now, none of us make it out." Still Isaiah fought her, wild with emotion. "Then we die here together." But Jermaine stepped forward and placed a hand on the glass, voice calm but firm. "Son, listen to me. This isn't your time, but it will be soon. And when that time comes, you'll need everything I know, everything I've hidden." Isaiah's voice cracked. "What are you talking about?" Jermaine's eyes were fierce. "There's a drive in that wallet. You didn't find it, but it's there, under the inner lining, micro-sized, encrypted. It has the real names, the real people behind Kane. They're bigger than Kane, bigger than anything you've seen, and they won't stop until every witness is silenced." Marina yanked Isaiah back in the shaft, slamming the access panel just as black-clad guards rounded the corner. The last thing Isaiah saw was his father raising his fists and walking toward the gunfire like a soldier ready to die for something bigger than himself. They escaped to the same tunnel they entered, crawling through mud, debris, and dust that tasted like betrayal, and when they burst into night air, coughing, gasping, Isaiah collapsed to his knees, sobbing not just for what he lost, but for what he now carried. Back in the safe house, Marina pulled a wallet from Isaiah's jacket, carefully peeled back the inner leather lining, and sure enough, a sliver of black metal, no bigger than a fingernail, glinted under the lamplight. Isaiah stared at it. "This little thing, this got my dad locked away?" Marina nodded slowly. "It holds the names of everyone who funded Project Monarch, the shell corporations, the ghost accounts, everything your father uncovered when he was embedded at KaneCorp." Isaiah leaned back, shaking. "I almost threw it away. I almost walked past it." Marina looked him dead in the eye. "And that's why they fear you, because you didn't..." She handed him the drive. "This is your inheritance now, not the one they left you, but the one your father fought for." Isaiah gripped it tight, but then came a knock on the door, 3 slow, deliberate taps. Marina drew her weapon, whispered, "That's not one of ours." She opened the door to find Agent Winters, eyes wide, face pale. "They found us. Someone leaked our location." Behind her, black SUVs were pulling up fast, tires screeching, men in tactical suits piling out. "We have to go now, but it was too late." The building shook with the force of a small explosion. Windows shattered. Isaiah was thrown across the room, ears ringing, flames licking the ceiling. And through the smoke, a tall man stepped inside, charcoal suit, silk shirt, sunglasses at night, flanked by mercenaries with silencers. He smiled, smooth and deadly. "Isaiah Mitchell," he said, "you've been making quite a mess." Marina cursed under her breath. "Wesley Garrison." Isaiah blinked. "Who?" Winters whispered. "The man who backed Kane. The man who ordered your father's disappearance. The man who runs Monarch now." Wesley laughed, slow and cruel. "You think this is about some files? Some little drive your daddy bled for? Boy, this is about control." Isaiah stood, fists clenched, heart on fire. "You destroyed my family." Wesley stepped forward, unbothered. "No, your father did that when he forgot his place. Now it's your turn to choose. Hand over the drive or join him." Isaiah looked at the charred room, at Marina bleeding from the arm, at Winters loading a second clip, and he stepped forward slowly, pulling the drive from his pocket. Wesley reached for it, but Isaiah clenched his fist, looked him in the eye, and said, "You should have checked the upload speed." Just then, a laptop in the corner blinked. Screen flashing upload complete. Distributed to 12 sources. Wesley's smile died, replaced by fury. "You little..." But before he could finish, Isaiah pressed the detonator Marina had slipped him. hidden in his other hand. The floor beneath them blew out. Smoke swallowed the room, and in the chaos, Isaiah ran, bleeding, coughing, stumbling into the back alley with Winters and Marina behind him. They climbed into a rusted van just as more bullets sliced the air. Tires screeched, and they disappeared into the night. 2 days later, news broke on every screen in the country. Fraud, conspiracy, off-the-books detainments. Shell companies traced to senators, judges, even a former vice president. But Isaiah didn't stop to celebrate. He watched it all from a motel room in Alabama, hoodie up, backpack clutched to his side. The drive long gone, duplicated and scattered. The truth now a weapon too powerful to kill. But he knew it wasn't over, not even close, because as the news anchors read off names, one face didn't appear. Wesley Garrison missing unaccounted for, and as Isaiah walked out into the dusty road, a black sedan sat at the corner, engine idling, window cracked just enough for a voice to call out, "You still think it's over, boy?" Isaiah turned slowly, but the car was already gone, leaving behind only tire marks and a fresh fear rising in his gut. He looked down at a note that had been slipped into his jacket, for words written in perfect cursive, "Your father's alive." The motel room was silent except for the soft hum of a busted AC unit blowing warm air. Isaiah sat on the edge of the bed, fingers trembling as he held the note, for words that turned his world upside down. "Your father is alive." For days he watched the news explode with corruption and scandal. CEOs in handcuffs, political figures resigning mid-broadcast, KaneCorp stock plummeting to ashes, and still, Wesley Garrison was nowhere to be found. No arrest, no sighting, not a single whisper. Except that note, slipped into his jacket by a ghost in a black sedan. Isaiah knew the game wasn't over. It had only changed boards. Marina leaned against the doorway, bandaged arm in a sling, her voice low. "If your father's alive, someone's keeping him off the grid deep." Isaiah nodded, eyes dark. "Then that's where I'm going." Winters slammed the laptop shut. "And if it's a trap?" Isaiah stood up slow. "Then I spring it." Marina exhaled. "Then we do it smart. We find Ryerson." Isaiah froze. "Councilman Ryerson? I thought he was clean." Marina shook her head. "Nobody's clean in this game. Just different shades of dirty. And he's the only one who ever kept Wesley nervous." So they moved, 3 ghosts in the wind, following encrypted trails, old burner numbers, unlisted safe house addresses, until one day, in a gated vineyard in Maryland, they found him, Councilman Ryerson, glass of wine in hand, sunglasses on, smile sharp as broken glass. He welcomed them like old friends. "I wondered when you'd show up." He said, "Your father and I, we go way back, boy." Isaiah stepped forward. "You know where he is?" Ryerson nodded. "I do, but everything is a cost." Marina barked. "Name it." Ryerson smirked. "Bring me Wesley Garrison alive." Isaiah's fist clenched. "He tried to kill me." Ryerson raised an eyebrow. "And he'll try again unless you finish this." Winters leaned in. "He's in Argentina under a false name, protected by private military. We have a route in, but no way out." Ryerson tapped his glass. "Then you'd better make sure the way in is the only way you need." 2 weeks later, under moonless skies and jungle heat, Isaiah moved with Marina and Winters to the forest compound. Silence was their only weapon, until they found him, Wesley Garrison, seated in a candlelit dining hall, unbothered, eating steak like a man who'd never lost a war. When he saw Isaiah, he didn't reach for a gun, didn't shout, didn't even blink. He just wiped his mouth and said, "So this is how it ends?" Isaiah stared him down. "This is how you end." Wesley smiled. "You think this matters? You take me down. Someone worse takes my place, boy." But Isaiah shook his head. "Not if I burn the whole tree." Marina tossed a flash drive on the table. "That's every shell company still untouched. Every offshore vault. We leaked this. Your empire doesn't just collapse. It evaporates." Wesley stood slowly. "You leak that, you die." But Isaiah pulled out his phone and pressed send. Footage of Wesley's hidden hideout, transaction logs, confession videos from KaneCorp whistleblowers. It all went. Live, uncensored, unstoppable. And in that moment, for the first time, Wesley looked afraid. "You don't know what you've done," he whispered, but Isaiah stepped close. "Yes, I do. I did what my father started." And just like that, the room exploded in motion. Winters cuffed Wesley, Marina covered the exit, and they dragged him out as black smoke rose from burning files and broken pride. Back in the States, Ryerson made good on his word. Jermaine Mitchell was found in an underground lab in Nevada, drugged, weak but alive, when Isaiah walked into that hospital room. His father turned his head, eyes bloodshot but warm. "You did it," he whispered. Isaiah took his hand. "We did." Jermaine smiled through tears. "You returned the wallet." And Isaiah chuckled. "Yeah, but I didn't expect it to cost this much." Marina stood outside the room, watching silent, while Winters made the call to federal authorities, confirming Garrison's extradition. Weeks passed. The world kept spinning, but something had changed. Laws rewritten, immunity deals shredded, secret programs dismantled brick by brick. And through it all, Isaiah kept the original wallet in his backpack, the same one he picked up on the street that day. Not for the money, not for the documents, but for the memory it carried. Because it wasn't just a wallet. It was a symbol of choice, of who he decided to be when no one was looking. One day, walking to the same neighborhood where it all started, Isaiah saw a kid drop a phone on the sidewalk. Another boy picked it up and glanced around before pocketing it. Isaiah stepped forward. "Hey, that's not yours." The kid rolled his eyes. "Ain't nobody watching." Isaiah kneeled down. "Somebody always is." The boy stared at him confused. "Why, you care?" Isaiah smiled. "Because I picked up something once too, and it changed everything." The boy blinked, then slowly pulled the phone back out and returned it. Isaiah watched him walk away, and for a moment he felt something unfamiliar. Peace. But peace never lasts long in a world built on secrets. Because 3 days later, a letter arrived at Marina's safe house. No name, no return address, just a symbol, an eye inside a pyramid. And inside the envelope, a photo of Jermaine Mitchell, strapped to a chair, eyes wide in terror. Time-stamped 2 hours after he was declared released, Isaiah stared at it, hands shaking, heart sinking, voice cracking as he whispered, "No, no, no, no." Marina looked at the photo, then at Isaiah. They lied. Winter stepped forward. "We played their game, but we never checked who built the board." Isaiah clenched his fists, blood boiling, eyes burning. "Then we flipped the whole table. Because the war wasn't over. It had only just begun." Hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And let's keep the conversation going.